We're going live, or we are live right now, I think.
Okay, just in time.
Really good timing. That's actually perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and here we go. By the way, how's my lighting now?
Well, it's definitely better than the first time. The first time was actually way too much.
I wonder what's causing my worst resolution then compared to you. Is it the bad lighting or something else? My shitty camera?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm using the built-in camera on the computer, so I'm
Yeah, mine is a standalone, $200. That should be better than your
yeah, it
computer.
should be significantly better. And the one I'm using actually is Apple's. So the one on the MacBook Pro is usually known for being a little bit inferior compared to other cameras, at least in terms of some of the general specs. Many computers have actually better specs.
So we should say to everyone for that showed up last week and we weren't there, we should apologize. And I think because somebody said this is Gerwalk. Looks like this is not happening. This is last week because it's the same link, So comments from before. So I think I need to be letting people know when we cancel at least.
Did we cancel? Didn't we actually record?
No. and I think he was here at least 21 minutes before he wrote this.
Well,
So
first of all, we would like. I think it's wonderful that he's following us, that he showed up, and that he mentioned that. So I think that's really appreciated.
Yeah, so we got to be more attentive to our audience. I'm going to let people know if we have to cancel. To let people know it was a personal problem. It happened a couple hours before we were going live, and I needed to just think about that and solve that. It was phone calls and stuff, and then so I would have been not solving the problem and then thinking about the problem during the episode.
All right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you should. I don't know. So sometimes when on certain stations, when they have some technical issues, they just replace it with flowers or something with background music.
Okay, but
well, probably not. I'm just kidding. I don't think this is a kind of a solution for this.
So you probably don't remember Osama, and I almost didn't remember. Not almost. I had to read it again. What we were working on today. How should we help ex-Muslims who are afraid of hell and stuck? This is a general question we've considered many times. We made a bunch of content about this, but I had a kind of new idea. I think it was something I thought of before and even included in some of our content. But I want to just ask this as a question. Let this whole episode be just about the question rather than already trying to solve it. This is kind of like going backwards or going back to the beginning, going back to the drawing board. How about that?
Well, didn't we say to begin with that once we put out content, that's not going to be the definitive thing, because there is no such thing as the definitive thing. And so when we revisit something, that's actually it means some kind of a process has taken place, and therefore.
So let me tell everyone, including you and Sam, of course, what instigated this. There's been 2 times now where I'm helping people on the ex-Muslim subreddit, and it's one of those where the person is engaging with me a lot, which is abnormal, by the way. A lot of people, they just it's a little short discussion, or just they asked a question. I said, hey, would you like to read an essay? They say yes. I give them the essay and they say great. There's a positive reaction, but then I never see them again. Sometimes they reply back a little bit and then I never see them again. Or if I see them again, it's a different topic, not that issue. But there's been a couple of people with myself, just 2 people. But they're doing this with everyone, by the way. The same thing. They talk a lot. They ask a lot. A lot of people are talking with them. But then all of us are all noticing the same things because it comes up in the discussions. Well, didn't we go over this before? But you're back to this again. Many of us have been getting that reaction. Again, it's 2 people, 2 separate people. And by the way, both of them mentioned OCD,
Okay.
that term. Probably other terms too that they both mentioned too, but that was one that they.
Can you elaborate a little bit in how, I mean, what kind of
Well, the
context?
way they describe it when they say the word OCD is like they keep going back to the question, what if they have a piece of logic in their head when they say the OCD too. They don't just say OCD.
Okay.
They say, what if I'm wrong and Islam is true? And then it's as if they forgot all their stuff they know about that, all the discussions they had before with other people, like a few days ago and a few days before that and a few days before that. And both of these people, they're talking for months on the ex-Muslim subreddit, kind of like recycling the same questions, tiny little bit different angle, not so much different.
Mm-hmm.
Not from my perspective, it's all the same. And so I have an idea, which is, I mean, one thing is they have an issue, in my view, they have an issue with critical thinking. They need to improve their critical thinking. And all the other people that are replying are also saying that. You know, when we say stuff like, but didn't we talk about that a few days ago? You were fine with it then. What's new now? They don't really say what's new. They're just, you know, and they just repeat it again. It's like
Right. Well, I think I would like to object to reducing it to critical
I don't
thinking.
do that. They do that. By the way,
No,
I just continue with the new angle.
what I wanted to say is that yes, the way that people think is definitely a very important aspect of this, but reducing it into something that you could actually diagnose a malfunctioning computer program with is not the same as
By the way,
diagnosing
I should
what's wrong
backtrack. What I
with a
said was
human.
wrong. Some people go the route of therapy, or even go the route of never really deal with the issue of things like whether Islam is true or not, but they get over their fear of hell. They're not scared of hell anymore and all that. But they didn't really address like the theological issues or even the epistemology issues around it, but they still stop fearing hell. So I'm not saying it's a requirement, but the way these two people are choosing to go, what they're arguing about is the truth of Islam, and they keep talking about that. And if anyone mentions, you know, have you considered therapy? They either say, yeah, I want to do that, or they can't. But then they don't mention it anymore. And actually, I remember in one of these two people's cases, they said they tried therapy, it didn't work, they're not trying it again. Like they're closing off paths. So then I'm trying to go along with their path then. Well, their chosen path is they're dealing with directly the theology of it. You know, how could Muhammad have known, right? And
Yeah, but probably the kind of syllogism that they're trying to follow in thinking about the logic of this, that's not the emotional and psychological engine that's behind this. What you're talking about is not actually theology, but probably more ontology. That they have grown up with a worldview where hell is actually part of the scenery, part of how they view things, how they process things. And so it's like you're trying to be part of a play, and there is a prop that's there, and so you have that idea that it's actually there, and you create your entire act around the presence of that prop. Once it's not there, part of your act is going to be it's going to be out of order. And so it's that thing, that gap that exists now, where something that was supposed there to be there, that's the ontology part, but it's no longer there. That's basically needing to be filled up or replaced, or modifying the scenery altogether in order to see that, oh, it's actually not something that's essential, or it's not there to begin with.
Okay, so let me tell you the idea I had. I mean, what they're trying to do, and by the way, they're asking people, help me check my thinking. In effect, they're saying, help me check my thinking, because they say things like, in the most rudimentary form, they're saying, what about this miracle? That's the most rudimentary form. But these two people I'm talking about, they put a lot more thinking into that and writing, making it a lot more clear to us their framing. And they're explaining, they're thinking of things like, well, Muhammad didn't know, as an example, Muhammad didn't know how to read, for example. But they're also explaining why they believe Muhammad didn't know how to read. And there's like paragraphs about it. Like there's really a lot of thinking in it. It's not just very basic, but of course it's missing the whole point. Like it's so in the wrong area of where to be thinking. And it's fine to think about that a little bit, but it's not the main line of thinking.
But you have to understand that for them, when they're learning this, when we learned this whole thing, this was actually part of the framing. That look at Muhammad, he was actually not able to read, and then all of a sudden he was bringing this quote unquote eloquent book that cannot have been the result of someone who's illiterate, etc., etc. So this is something that we do learn as we are growing up.
So let me make my point finally. So the idea, what was it? So what they're trying to do, and what they're asking for, even though it's not these words, help me fix my thinking mistakes in this area, because I believe my fear of hell is related to this thinking mistake. But the problem is, one way to word it is they're trying to improve their critical thinking on a topic that they are very scared about.
Okay.
I don't think that works well, because you're scared. It would make sense if you want to improve your critical thinking, do it on a topic that is manageable. It doesn't trigger your anxiety and fear and all that. And then when your critical thinking is a little bit better in that area, then you can now apply your improved critical thinking skills on the topic that is more scary. And then if you find that's still not working, well, go back and improve your critical thinking skills even more on other topics. I don't see anyone doing that kind of thing.
But if I want to push back on this,
it's
like someone who lost a key in the dark, and because there is light somewhere else, you're asking them go look for the key or do your search in the place where there is light, when in fact they know that that's not where they lost the key. In this particular situation, what they're actually what's corresponding to this is that whatever it is that they're going to be looking at, that's a replacement as a kind of a practice to improve their critical thinking skills, it's not going to be satisfying that need all the time. While they're trying to work on that other problem, they're actually being preoccupied with something else. Like,
so let me give you an example and tell me if
right.
It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
A concrete example, because I said something abstract. Maybe I didn't get across the exact idea. So have you ever seen people argue like this? Or I don't know that it's arguing, it's helping someone understand something. So two people are talking, let's say on the ex-Muslim subreddit, and the scared person is saying things like, well, if X, Y, and Z is true, doesn't that mean A is the case? And it's stuff like, if it's true that Muhammad didn't know how to read, and then blah blah blah, doesn't that mean I'm going to hell? And then a lot of people reply like this. They say, well, think about it from this other scenario. If you were in this other scenario, is that what you would do? So it's a type of critical thinking in another scenario that isn't scary, but has similar logic to this one they are scared about, to help them correct this one.
Okay. Okay, I see where I see your original intention in this.
And it's to connect two different areas of their knowledge that really should work the same, but they develop differently in their mind, but they should be working the same.
Okay.
There's a lot of universality in our thinking and the way it should be.
Well, because we are not purely rational beings, after all.
Sure, sure. And you know, if you think about when we're born, there's none of that yet. Or there is some, but it's I mean, I guess we should I mean, there's subconscious inexplicit, there's conscious explicit. When you're born, there's no conscious explicit as far as I understand. But and of course your subconscious inexplicit has a lot of universality in it. And maybe when you're born it is very universal. Everything is the same. You got one system, I don't know. But as you get older and you start learning a lot of frameworks and things, you find a lot of universality. Plus a lot of people before us have told us that and we can learn from them.
And it's all, to begin with, it's all pattern recognition. If we want to take one model and see how it works, usually that's how we extrapolate to other models to begin with in everyday.
Pattern recognition, but also, and I know you already know this, but I'm going to go ahead and add it. Um, it's also the opposite of you know, you got to rule out patterns too. So you got to check where they don't work. You can't just say, and I know you know that again. But so for other people to hear this, you know, I think the a good way to say it is, you have an idea that works somewhere, you recognize it as good, you should try to see if it applies in every other area in your mind. It might not in a specific area, but you got to try and test, and then you might rule it out, but don't automatically rule it out without trying, which is what the general default is. When I say default, I mean like that's kind of how most schools train you. You know, there's physics over there, biology over there, chemistry over there. We got different sets of methods for each. No crossover. Don't even ask. And no, like none of the teachers are saying, by the way, it's the same methods in all of them. I don't know if maybe they don't know it and don't know how to say that. No one ever told me that. None of my teachers ever said that.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed several things of that sort before about methodology and the fact that it's always an implicit thing. It's never something that gets talked about in an explicit way during these courses. So it's not something that gets talked about unless you're having some kind of a specialized course that's about methodology, which it doesn't even belong usually in a science classroom.
I'm not even talking about just science. I'm talking about all the schooling I did, all of it. I wonder if there's better schools that do talk like that, and you know, like K to 12 level. I went to public schools a lot. I don't think they're really trying to do that.
So if we, oh, so there's a comment here. I'm curious how some and others overcame away fear. Okay. Yeah, that was definitely a fear, and it's for me personally, it lingered on for a very long time. It wasn't something that went away. Um, I would say probably it lasted for far more time than it should have after I have reached the level of equilibrium with the ideas that this couldn't be right. But still, that irrational fear that what if I was wrong? Basically, it's this what you were just talking about. What if we look at this or that miracle or alleged miracle of Muhammad, and you end up with something that would be right? Would that change things? So, if I want to say something specific about this that reflects my own experience, it's just like any kind of deep scar that takes a lot of time to heal. Um, it's not going to heal by itself, but time is definitely a very important factor in this. And so what's happening here is that in most of the cases that actually do come up, where people are saying, I cannot do it because I'm afraid of hell, it's probably people who are in the process of leaving religion or have just left religion and are having so many ties still connecting to so much connective tissue that's holding them back, that they're still not able to break away from it. This is going That connective tissue on its own is going to atrophy with time. But I suspect that most of them haven't had enough time to actually create a distance between themselves and religion.
I want to continue on that, but interact with our audience. This is Veiled Rose with us again.
Hmm.
She said hi earlier, but this is her comment now. Critical thinking is not taught in schools, sadly. Questioning authority and bad ideas is not taught. It goes against the power structures in society. I think that's like the more mainstream schools. It's the newer kind of schools, I think. I'm not really sure. But the rich, powerful people send their kids to a different kind of school that teaches them how to think and how to be rulers of the people at the other schools.
I personally I don't know about the types of schools that might be present, but I really think that what she's saying is correct. And by the way, I think it would be great if we can have her again.
Oh yeah, cool. We should talk about Veiled Rose. If you have an idea of you what you want to talk about, if you come on again, you know what we could talk about is, or maybe we already did this. I don't remember. We thought of a episode to do. Well, we haven't done it yet. It's about helping like ex-Muslims shake off the shame of sex. How about that's the easy way to say it,
Right.
and nuanced relations related things around it. And I'm not talking about doing the episode. I'm talking about discussing doing the episode. Hey, you know what I mean? It's not about doing the episode because it's very complex and you got to plan. So I'm just talking about it a little bit to plan it more.
Yeah. But
Rose, if you're interested in discussing with us about it on this show, we could do that um, without actually doing the episode, like I said. Oh, Rose never feared hell either because it always seemed like nonsense. Wow.
I think that's wonderful. Uh, Although I don't want to generalize also, and it might be a little bit different from my perspective, but many of the people that I know who ended up leaving Islam have gone through some kind of a process where they did fear hell, and it was a main issue for them.
By the way, I really think we should be doing this time over the other time because 3 times now we're getting more people than at the other times. And also, this is the first time that I didn't even post to the ex-Muslim subreddit. So, that is not a factor, and we're getting, so let's, something about 5 o'clock our time, my time, 3 o'clock your time
Yeah.
is good for people,
Yeah.
or at least our audience.
Yeah.
Rose says, yes, that'll be good. I spoke to ex-Jehovah's Witness who did a PhD on sexuality throughout early Christianity. Oh, awesome. Maybe you could tell us about that and we could explore how to do an episode like that. And you could either tell me a particular day you want to come on and we could like kind of focus the episode on that.
Yeah.
Or just show up any episode towards the end and we could talk a little bit.
Well, it doesn't have to be towards the end, because if you're bringing some ideas, maybe we could dedicate some more time to this, because
yeah, it could be like a half hour after the first hour, let's say.
Right. Yeah.
Towards the end. That's what I mean. But a half hour is a good chunk.
Yeah. There was a comment by Gerwak. Can you go back? He was asking something.
Is it this one?
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you how to feel shame or guilt. Your emotions are valid. And your emotions, yes, thank you. And the problem with this is that it really is a kind of a safeguard for religion. There is an equivalent safeguard that was mentioned explicitly relatively recently by one of the famous Muslim scholars, the sheikhs recently. He passed away. His name is Al-Qaradawi. He was talking about the apostasy in Islam. He was saying that if it weren't for apostasy, we wouldn't have
Islam
Islam.
today.
Yeah, basically, he
You could
said
have
that.
said it like this: I wouldn't be a Muslim.
Yeah, and so you can imagine that fear of hell is a kind of an equivalent psychological tool that is used in pretty much the same way, except that it's being used in a kind of a self-policing and community policing way, where you're not having Big Brother only outside of you. You also have God inside of you, basically listening and watching everything. And so if you're really fearing hell, you're going to always have that sense that, oh, what if I do this, what if I do that, everything that I'm doing, every intention. And that's actually the worst thing, that it's not only the acts that you do, but also
It's
the
like making you
intent.
fight yourself.
Yeah, it's like you're going to be completely defenseless, and there's nothing for you that you can do to hide away from that. And so if there is a hell, this means that you're really fully exposed, and you have no way of avoiding this.
Zenith times 3 is asking, what was the talk where that guy said killing apostates, maintain Islam? I don't know that it had a name, and I have a link somewhere, but I can't get to it now. You know what? If you email me, I can find it for you.
Yeah, it's a very common, it's very popular.
Qaradawi, what?
Qaradawi. Qaradawi.
Qaradawi.
Mhm.
Yeah, search that, and you should be able to find it. There's something else I wanted to show on here. Oh, by the way, so Songs of Deprivation is with us today. This is a good question. I'm not sure we should get into it in this episode. It's off topic, but that's a good thing I want to talk about sometime soon. I never thought about doing an episode, but here we go. There's an idea. What do you think of, the whole idea of converting to Islam to marry someone? That's a huge topic. Let's leave that to another day. I'm going to record it right now so that we do talk about it eventually soon.
I have a couple of people who, unfortunately, I know who did that.
Oh, interesting. Usama knows 2 people. I know one too. Yeah, she was on my podcast. By the way, let me squeeze in two things real quick before we continue on this topic. Or a few things. We don't have any new information about the situation with Betty Lechkar and also Sharif Gaber. There's not, as far as I know, there's not much motion going on with the Betty case, at least, and I mean on the side of the activism. I could be wrong. But in the Sharif Gaber case, also nothing happening because we still don't know where he is. Like the government still hasn't said, hey, we have him. But there's interesting information. Wissam Sharafuddin says he has the U.S. State Department ready to do something about it. But I don't think anything can happen yet until the government says we got him. Anyway. Okay. 2 more things. I have 2 more episode ideas. I want to check with you and see what we could do with it. Might not be something for this live stream. Maybe it'll be a podcast. It's about the Islamic Golden Age as a backtrack context. But I heard from someone, I don't know how true this is, but it kind of goes along with all the story. I should have recorded his name, but one of the caliphs at the time had a dream that Aristotle told him to seek knowledge everywhere. And then, the Islamic Golden Age happened.
So,
and to be clear, there's a professor. I talked about this in the one of the groups. Wissam Sharafuddin said he'd love to do it with me, but then he said I have a professor that should do it instead, and then he took himself out of it. He'd rather it be the professor and me, I guess. I want you there So hopefully he can come at the designated time, or if not, then hopefully you and I and him can coordinate a podcast.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah, so I'd have to find out his open schedule, your open schedule, and try to sync it with
Yeah,
mine.
maybe you can offline. You can send me some information, especially about. Did you have the professor's name or
Oh, right now,
not right now?
I
Not
don't remember if he
necessarily.
told me the name or not.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll get that information. I'll get his email. Uh, do you mean you want me to talk to you about it before contacting him, or should I just contact you and him together?
Uh, we'll discuss that.
We'll discuss that
Offline.
later too. Okay,
Yeah.
after this call, let's try
Yeah.
to do that if we
Yeah.
remember. I'll bold something to help us remember. Okay. Another episode idea might not be worth it. Tell me what you think. Somebody approached me on Reddit. I could tell it's from the ex-Muslim subreddit or related subs. He didn't really know who I was or like what I do live stream wise or not or nonprofit. He just sees me as another Redditor.
Okay.
They asked me to talk to their friend without the friend knowing and keeping secret that this person asked me to do that.
Okay.
And after some talking, and right away I'm against it, by the way. I just hate lying in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've hated it my whole life. And I remember very young in my life, it's like, why would I want to lie? If you lie, now you got to keep track of that lie. And the next thing you say, now you might have to lie again to hold up the last lie. Now you got to keep track of that. It just explodes. And I'm like, nope, I'm not lying.
Well, let me say something here.
Go ahead.
There is a kind of a correlation. I'm not going to say that there is a kind of a causation, but there's a kind of a correlation between outright atheism and honesty, authenticity, let's say. When I feel that when you go all the way to atheism, there is something that prevents all those barriers of presenting things in a way that's not the way they are, that drops down and is completely not there. But it's a kind of an observation. It's like I said, it's a correlation, not causation. And if I want to point to someone who's really championing that, it would be Sam Harris.
I've said a similar thing before. I said, although I don't think I used the word honesty. And by the way, the particular word honesty doesn't matter that much. Another word you could use, which has the same effect, and I think they're just two angles of the same thing, is curiosity. If if we can be specific, let's say, you're a Muslim, you're aware of atheism, it could be that you're not switching because you're not really curious. Well, that's also not really honest. Like, an honest person is a very curious person. Kill the curiosity, you also lost the honesty because you're not digging to find out if you're wrong.
Well, if you look at what religion really does, it's meant to actually put a lid on curiosity to begin with. Because
you hear them say it. You hear them say these words. How do they say it? Not even a doubt. Fuck, how do they say it? Without a shadow of a doubt. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
What do you mean no doubt about it? Why not?
If you go in life with a curious mindset, imagine all the things that you're going to be engaging with, and imagine all the statements that you're going to be questioning, that you're going to be looking into. When you're looking at religion is meant there to basically stop all that and have you just focus on practicalities.
Well, it even tells you if you doubt, you go to hell, right? Am I pulling shit out of my?
Yeah. No, in Islam in particular, yes. There are other religions that have a kind of a thriving on doubt Catholicism in particular, they have a thing for it. Well, also, if I also want to think about uh, Dostoevsky's novels and Orthodox Christianity in Russia, yeah, there's something there. But there is something in Christianity where doubt is viewed as a kind of a tool for enforcing faith. A kind of a paradoxical thing, but that's how they view it.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about a comment here. Rose said
Mhm.
she remembers that her grandmother said the grandmother, will go to hell because uh, Rose's brother. I should have just read it. It's hard to flip all the pronouns. I'm going to start over. I remember my grandmother saying she will go to hell because my brother married a non-Muslim, that people pay for the sins of ancestors. It's interesting because Islam, I don't think says that, but what I think is happening is this culture that Rose is from was there before Islam got there and mixed. And I guess this family kept an element from the older culture. Or you correct me. Does Islam say you pay for your dad's mistakes, right?
Well, in in the Bible, there is a bunch of things. I'm talking about the Old Testament, um, or the Tanakh, where it talks about how several generations are going to be carrying a certain sin. And in fact, if you look at Christianity, the whole idea of the original sin is talking about something that is inherited. Now, Islam came specifically with an idea that this is not supposed to be there. There is a verse that says "La taziru waziratun wizra ukhra." No one is going to be carrying or shouldering the burden of someone else. Um, so
Now, by the way, that is a better idea than the one Rose's grandmother has.
yeah. So
It is.
what
The point is, I'm saying it's truthful.
yeah, no,
I mean,
I
and
think
the angle of it, obviously,
what
not the health part.
what you said at the beginning, that this is probably predating, or maybe not necessarily predating, but probably adjacent, parallel to Islam, that might actually make sense, because as far as I know, saying something of that sort, that's not true. However, if you look at the hadith, you will see that there is a kind of guilt by implication, especially when it comes to women. So, for example, this is the hadith. This is not the Quran. It talks about how a woman is going to have her uncle, her dad, and everybody else go into hell because of her sins, or something of that sort. So,
Songs of Deprivation says, "I'm wondering if I can start selling hell insurance. Will that make me some money?" You know, in a sense, I mean, a version of that product exists, but it's not for hell. It's for jinn, and maybe there's other versions, right? Like,
yeah.
can you go paste? Dude, my mother told me a story. Listen to this fucking shit. And this is one of those that shows you that the superstitions from one generation don't all cross over into the next generation, even
Yeah.
if some of them do. You know, and that would make sense, right? But it looks like they're getting better. So my mother's scenario was her mother believed in I don't know what the right word is, but I'll describe the thing, and then maybe the right word is sahar, curse. Sahar is curse, right?
Not exactly. Sihr is a it's an umbrella term that can include
I might
magic,
be using the wrong
witchcraft.
word then, because you know when you summarize, I could be summarizing in Arabic, and I could have the wrong word. I'll describe the thing. You tell me what word applies to this. I don't remember what they went to the saharist for. The magic person. I don't know what they went to her for. Some kind of problem they have. And she said, okay. And she gets this little paper, writes something on it, folds it, and says, gives it to my mother's mother says, hide this in your house. And my mom was like, what the fuck is this? She doesn't cuss, probably. I don't know. Or she does and she hides it from me. I don't know. That's what I found out, by the way. If you watch one of the episodes on this show, she said it. I was like, what? So she was like, this is crazy. So she's like mad at her mother, too, for even believing this. Shocked or whatever. I don't know if mad is the right word. Maybe I'm putting on my false interpretations on it. She went and found the piece of paper, opened it up, and looked at it. First of all, to be clear, the mother did not do that. My mother's mother didn't open it and look at it. I wonder if the instructions were you can't look at it, otherwise it breaks the curse.
Yeah, probably.
She said it was gibberish on there, like nothing. Gibberish means nothing. It's not Arabic letters or words or concepts. It's just bleh.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I know about some.
Rose says, "Is it about the health insurance? Isn't that what zakat is? It is. Although I don't know. I like zakat if it's used properly. Conceptually, it sounds like an amazing thing. I don't know how it's actually used. I don't know how the money is used. Maybe it's not. Maybe there's a lot of corruption. Maybe there's a lot of theft. I don't know.
Well, if you look at the Quran says that you collect the zakah and lists a few places where this can be used, and many of these are just honorable things, helping the poor, the orphans, and stuff of that sort. So it's not a bad idea. How is it actually used, and does it actually get implemented in that way, especially when you're thinking about this as a kind of a centralized thing that gets collected like a tax?
Yeah.
And you have the potential for people who might be saying, well, what's going to happen if I take for myself maybe that much money? That's not going to change anything. I'm just doing a lot of good. And
well, another real thing is, if you think about Hajj and the money they collect for zakat, that's how they present it. Give money for zakat. They're collecting money in between all the people who are Hajjing.
Well, that's probably sadaqah, not zakah.
Oh, they don't use the word zakat, you're saying?
Zakat is different. Zakat is a specific percentage on your
No, I get that. But they don't collect it at that time, you're saying?
Yeah, the sadaqah is different. The sadaqah you
okay,
give.
Then everything I was going to say about that was wrong, so I won't say it.
Well, not necessarily. I mean,
it's wrong. I'm not going to say it. Yeah. Okay, let's try to get back to the point about how to help people who are fearing hell. So I told you that concrete example of how to help someone that you said you liked after hearing it. You didn't necessarily like the abstract version I said, but maybe if we could, while you're talking with someone and you use that, well, in this other scenario, would you conclude that? Would you use that same reasoning in this other scenario? And if that fearing person says, oh yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I get it now. I'm no longer worried about this idea. But now there's thousands of others still.
But the problem with this, it's that if you have someone who is really emotionally fearing something, and that's what's preventing their ability to do critical thinking, is what's actually hampering the whole thing, they're going to start to come up with all sorts of excuses and justifications and counter arguments that would say, well, what you're saying applies there, but when you come here and apply it, there's this whole completely different situation.
Oh yeah, and if they do that, now you have more thing to discuss with them, sure. But what you find out with somebody doing this for months is that you're seeing the same lines of argument again and again. Now, what a lot of other people do is they just kind of stop and say, well, I already answered that one. Why are you saying it again? They kind of get mad. Sometimes they even think now, oh, I think you're faking. In the sense of he's really a Muslim and he's trying to scare ex-Muslims.
And that's possible. Yeah, I've seen that.
So maybe these two people I'm talking about are really just Muslims who were trying to scare everybody.
Well, yeah, I don't know anything about those particular people, but I have seen something of that sort happen with others. They can sometimes pretend, and they would think that this is a legitimate way of doing what they're doing.
So Gerbach asks, if someone insinuated they are scared of hell, how can you support them in their journey of discovery? And that's the thing we've been talking about. If you want to give a general answer, and everybody does this too, they kind of lead with therapy. A lot of people can't do that. They don't have the money. Some people have a mental block about it, even if they had the money. But then there's like, I don't know how well this would work. Journaling is the thing that could help. The thing is, people may not know how to do it in a good way. That would be helpful. I'm pretty sure therapists give that kind of advice about journaling, but they probably explain how to do it a little bit. I don't think you can just say, by the way, have you heard of journaling? Go do that. Look up a dictionary definition and figure it out like that. I don't think that will work. Plus some people might have done journaling before, but it's in a specific way. And, for this topic, maybe it needs a little bit different way. And maybe they don't know how to switch gears or whatever.
Go ahead.
I didn't really have another thing. I mean, I don't really have a good answer to this anyway. My answer is really long and verbose, you could tell, which already isn't good for these people. They hear a big, long answer. Therapy, journaling, do this. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? Good. Sorry.
So the thing about something like hell is that it's being proposed in a kind of a rational, or at least a way that is supposed to appear rational, like saying, okay, you know why hell is there? It's because some people do bad things, and you're doing bad things that God is going to judge. And since your soul is eternal, since you're going to end up being eternally either living in some kind of a way after death, you're going to be judged in an eternal way, where you either go to a bad place for punishing your deeds, or to a good place where you're going to be rewarded for your things. So there is a kind of a logic to this. And so working with that logic, demolishing that logic is probably a main thing.
A lot of people do stop hearing hell with what you're saying. They break down the logic of hell doesn't even make sense on its own terms.
Yeah, exactly. So that there is that. Of course, that's not really going to demolish the whole thing. If they are emotionally scared of this, it's like when you're talking about someone who has some kind of a phobia, and they present a very irrational fear from something that is not supposed to be scary. You can try to reason them out of this, and you're probably going to be successful to some degree, but there is a kind of an irrational emotional component that's there, which needs that work that you were talking about, the therapy, the journaling, all these things. So you have two different things that have to be combined together. That rational talk about what's actually being proposed here, that would lead to people thinking about hell. And then there is that.
You don't have to solve both of them. You can solve one or the other, and the whole thing gets solved. Does that make sense? How he said
it? In principle, yes, but I think in practice you have these two things together, and I think the basis is more psychological than rational.
Yeah, and another way to say it, I've heard people say it, I think this is useful, is, I'll paraphrase, once you realize hell doesn't even make sense, that's your rational side, okay, but now it's still going to take time for your emotions to catch up.
Yeah.
Okay. But despite that, I think there's people who stop fearing hell even though they didn't do too much of that first step. Like, as an example, there's people who, ex-Muslims, who don't fear hell, who still say, oh yeah, I could be wrong and I might go to hell, but whatever.
So
So
let me give you the type of logic for me personally that perpetuated this kind of thing for way longer than it should have been there. So you're taught that God is supposed to be all powerful, all knowledgeable, all knowing, etc., etc., etc. That what what we as humans have is just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of his infinite wisdom and understanding. Therefore, you might be thinking that you have demolished that rational basis for hell, but in fact, you're actually not doing something that has done anything to it. That this thing exceeds your understanding, your ability, your human ability to really understand what's going on. And so that idea that I'm not really understanding this, that gives open the door to irrationality to take over, even though you're actually able to take apart that rational part of the argument and show that this actually doesn't make sense. The idea of hell is self-contradictory and inconsistent and doesn't stand on its own. And yet you have this idea, well, maybe I'm wrong because maybe there's something that exceeds my ability to understand as a human. That also is another component that we get taught really early on, that we don't really understand anything. And in fact, if you look at the Quran, in almost all places where humans are concerned, there is something that's always denigrating humans and lowering their status, showing that they're inferior in some way, or that they are rebellious, or something that's really bad. And so you're always living with that kind of guilt and inferiority that it's really hard to disentangle from it.
yeah, so I guess to try to answer this question, which by the way is the same question for this whole topic, this whole episode. First of all, every person is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's like buckets you could put people in or whatever, but you don't know what buckets they're going to be in, and neither do they. Maybe, you know what I mean. It's only after the fact, after the whole trend progression, that somebody might know what bucket they ended up in. So I guess if you've been doing this for a while and you've helped a lot of people, you start seeing what those buckets are. And you can't place a person right from the beginning, you know, like for me to know that someone that, like one of these people I've been talking to for months now, 2 months now. Like I didn't know he was going to be like this from day one, although I could have probably guessed because within a few messages I was already saying, oh, he's saying the same things this other guy said, and that guy went 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, years actually. But you know, that was just 2 data points, or that was actually 1 data point. Trying to make a trend from 1 data point, that's difficult. Well, now I got 2 data points for this kind of person. Like I was saying, all the other people I deal with, you know, it's just a little bit of interaction, and you know, they might have a follow-up question a little bit later, but then it kind of ends. And maybe they're still troubled, but they're not visible to me. These other 2 cases, extremely visible. They're posting a lot in the ex-Muslim subreddit, to the point that some people are replying, didn't you ask this yesterday? Stop doing this. I'm sick of seeing this.
Well, actually, you might be pointing out something that has to do with the nature of the platform itself. That so if you look at any kind of social medium, you'll find that the thing that that perpetuates or gives impetus to for it to continue is to have that kind of continuous change, a new topic every once in a while. And so when that kind of persistence is not something that is usually supported by that medium, And so those people who might come to you and say, ask something and then disappear after a few interactions, they're probably following the pattern that would be expected for this kind of medium. They're not really,
They think
they're
people
not,
don't want to see it.
yeah, and they might not have actually found the satisfactory answer that they wanted, but they think that they might have gotten out what they could out of this interaction.
I see. Well, let me give you another angle. Tell me what you think. If we divide these up into two groups, these two scared people operating for months, the way I said, and then everybody else. What might be happening is the everybody else group, they listen more to the rest of the people and learn from them. I think these two other people, they don't read what other people write. They make posts. They read some comments, but just like they don't read other people's posts, they don't really dig into the comments either.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I don't agree with you. I'll stop talking to you. I'll keep talking with the other guy. You know what I mean? And then they're not learning anything that way because they're not really talking with people or listening to other people.
Yeah, yeah. I think I can actually confirm what you're saying from some of the interaction that we have seen on Facebook groups, where you would look at the percentages of the people who actually interact compared to the people who are registered as active, as being there. So you see a lot of these people who are silent, they don't actually say much, but they seem to be engaged. It means that they're probably
Listening,
reading.
reading,
Yeah,
learning.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Compared to other people, the smaller percentage who might be a little bit more vocal, but they come with a certain concern that they want to put in, and probably not looking at what other people are saying.
Even
Yeah,
when some yeah. So let's formalize this some more. Concrete scenario. You gave it abstract. Tell me if this is what you meant. So remember the two groups: the talking a lot, not listening to other people, listening to other people a lot, but not talking much. That first group that we're describing, this bad way, we think it's bad. Shit, where was I going with this? I went too general. I was going to give a concrete example of what? What was your abstract thing?
well,
You said
that you do have these two different groups of people who are one of them listening more, one of them talking more, and the ones that are talking more are usually bringing a specific concern that they
the
want.
concern concept.
Yeah.
So this first group of people that we're saying is doing it wrong. They come to the group and they make a post saying, "Here's my concern, X," and then people reply and say, and after some discussion, they're like trying to show them, look, that's not really the main issue. It's really the main issue is this other thing, and they're trying to help them see that. And in a general case, if it's me, let's say, I will try to understand what they're saying. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of this kind of person, they're like, no, that's not my concern, and you're wrong, or maybe you're right for yourself, but for me, I'm concerned about this. And they're like rigidly stuck to that initial line of thinking, and and it matches with the way they describe their OCD. They even use the word stuck.
Yeah.
They're stuck in this line of thinking. They're not listening. That's the main issue. I don't know how to get them to
listen. I don't think that's necessarily explainable in terms of the nature of their concern, that it's about health, but it's probably who that person is. Who they're probably going to be approaching other things that in that same way outside of
their whole life is like this. That's what I believe. Their whole life is like this.
Yeah, that's my suspicion. And so this type of person would require a completely different way of dealing with them compared to others, and the conversations with them can be sometimes useful and productive, but very often it can be too rigid.
If they operated this way in a therapy session as the client, That wouldn't work well. And I'm sure therapists are skilled at how to work with these kind of people and like help them move along. And I'm guessing a therapist would do better than like on average all of these attempts that we other ex-Muslims are helping these people with. But another element could be this. Maybe this person would do better at listening to a therapist because they see the therapist as having like authority on some knowledge.
Well, in order for you to actually go to therapy and to have the therapy work, you have to have some willingness in the first place that, okay, I'm going there and I want this to work. I have some motivation. Maybe I'm not feeling good and I think that this is going to help me. So there's some kind of a willingness that's there. And if you end up in a situation where you're actually really scared of hell or whatever it is that's causing that anxiety, and wanting to get rid of that feeling, but also embracing that feeling and not wanting it to go away, you're basically trying to argue in a way that that might want the other side to confirm, oh yeah, hell seems to be a reasonable thing and you should be scared of it. So in some cases it might be that people are actually looking for reactions of that sort.
Another element too is when you're dealing with a therapist, standard scenario, you have like a video call like this. And in the ex-Muslim subreddit and all these discussion places, it's just text. Well, we didn't evolve for text in the beginning. We learned how to speak and understand each other through first facial reactions, as babies.
Yeah.
Then body language. You could see those as the same thing. Your face is part of your body. And then later, words, concepts, and then mixing them. We're dealing with words, but also I'm looking at your eyes to see where you're looking, and I'm looking if there's, if there's a smile or if you're doing this or, So when you're dealing with your therapist, you're getting all that extra communication.
Yeah.
You're lacking it in the text-only discussion place.
Sometimes there is this kind of barrier that prevents the human interaction from going fully into that mode that you're describing, where you're seeing the face, you're seeing the reactions, you're seeing the body language, and you're not only seeing, but you're also reacting, empathizing, working in a way that's basically when we're talking about a conversation, it's basically something that's involving the two people, not necessarily equally, depending on who's talking, but there is something that's involving the two people. When you're doing this in text form, you create an image probably of the person that you're talking to, and that image is not going to necessarily reflect who that person is. It's going to reflect your own view of who that person should be.
You have to fill in the gaps a lot more than if it was a video call like this.
Yeah.
We have to fill in the gaps in both cases, but one is like 100x more.
Yeah. And so many people take more licenses in what they write because of that barrier. You're basically talking to yourself essentially, and having a text appear in your conscious stream, and then you react to it as if it's another person. Well, you're having a part of another person. You're not having the full real person in front of you, and so filling in the gaps as a result of that would make you, in a way, say more things that are not necessarily something that you would say to another person, but at the same time, it doesn't actually expose certain human sides of you that would be otherwise exposed. So it has some aspects of it that are not bad, but some aspects that mask certain important things that should be there.
You know what? If I was to look at this question again and think about how I reply to people when I see them on the ex-Muslim subreddit with this kind of thing, especially if they made a post making that the central topic, their fear of hell, rather than like they Gerbach says insinuated, like it wasn't the main topic. Suppose it's the main topic. Some good things to do right in your first message is something like, first, like, be extra kind, and without too much giving advice right away, more like saying something like, hey, it's good that you're bringing this up now. There's a lot of people here willing to help, including myself. I say that a lot now. To get them to open and willing to do more of talking with us.
Yeah.
As opposed to if I just write one quick message, it could lead to, I basically just said, listen to me. Because I gave him one of my essays, let's say, after they asked. After I asked them, they said, yeah. Like, I'd rather say, hey, we all want to help you. There's a lot of people here willing. Try to use all of us. But here's what I think, And part of what I think is it's things like go talk with other people, read a lot of different essays, different books, try a therapist. And, even when we talk about the therapy stuff, it doesn't mean your first therapist is going to be the one. It's same as marriage. Hey, yeah, go get married. Maybe your first marriage doesn't work. Okay, try again. But you know what Socrates said? He goes, I like the idea of people getting married. Yeah, go do that. If it doesn't work out, become a philosopher.
That's funny.
That's the way he said it. Which is like saying you can't be a philosopher while you're married. I don't think that's right. Maybe it's the case in a lot of scenarios, but I don't think it's a hard rule,
I guess it depends. Yeah, but it seems that that he actually ended up with kind of an interesting situation that made him say that.
Yeah, I don't know his history. If he was married before that or whatever. Rose asks, question to ask is, would you punish your child to eternal hell? Oh yeah, she's saying questions to ask these people who are afraid of hell, like their first, like let's say it's your first time talking to them or whatever. This is like saying, here's this other scenario. Would you put them in hell? Like, say you were God. This is another way of saying it. Say you were God. Would you put this thing in hell? Saying it's your child gives it more emotional attachment. And then she continues.
What do you think the answer is?
Well, I'm against punishment in general.
But we're talking about someone who is a Muslim. You're talking to a Muslim person.
Oh, shit. Yeah, maybe that's not a question that would work well.
Yeah,
if they would say, "Oh, I totally put them in hell."
Yeah. So yeah, but and one of the things that they're going to say, I'm going to do everything in my power to prevent that from happening, and so I'm going to advise
that would push them even further to that shit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's a good line of questioning until you find out whether they're for abuse and cruelty and all those things.
Exactly. It's going to depend on who's actually getting this advice. Is it someone who's actually already thinking about hell as a bad place, or is it someone who believes in hell? Because if they do, they would say, yeah, a bad child doing whatever it is.
I've seen a lot of discussion like that, where somebody makes an argument like one of these, and they get a totally unexpected reply, like, and their point didn't work on that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why mostly I try to find out what they think first. So that you can aim an argument at that thinking.
Yeah. So whatever it is that is being discussed, knowing what the position that the person in front of you has is really important in order to actually tailor the way that you're going to have a conversation with that person. Because
I wonder if these questions Rose would ask are leading questions. Because like she's assuming the answer in the question, I think.
So
I
the
don't think
second
it does
question,
well at exposing their thinking.
yeah, could you as a human harm your child? The way that they're going to say to answer this, if I would put myself in their shoes, no, and that's why I'm going to do my best to not have them go to hell.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
It's
this,
difficult. This is really a
yeah,
difficult problem. Really a
which
difficult problem.
shows you how centuries of refining these fears have actually led to a kind of a mechanism that's really hard to break away from. Um, the fact that we do have people, I wouldn't say leaving in droves, but they are leaving in large numbers in this age. This is actually a testament that there is something that's happening now that's making people overcome this type of fear. The fear and the whole system, not just the fear itself.
Yeah, because to be clear, the emotions are there, but partially being propped up by explicit ideas. And you know what? It makes sense. The explicit ideas were in your head before the fear was there. Think of the chronological order of those two events. You first heard the explicit idea of hell. Later, you had a fear about it. And you had explicit ideas about things that would cause you to go to hell before you had a fear about it.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that you get these so early in life that, like I said at the beginning, it's basically part of the scenery. It's not something that you grow up, you've never heard of hell,
Yeah,
and
they
then
don't
all of
even
a
know it as things they assume.
yeah,
You can
yeah.
tell by the really basic question of, well, given that, or they don't even say the word given. They say, Muhammad didn't know how to read. Doesn't that mean that Islam is the truth? There's an assumption in there, which is he didn't know how to read. And it's not even being presented as a potentially wrong and, hey, go argue your case that it's real first before going to the next step.
Which by the way is incorrect.
Okay. Also, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, you can be a very reasonable person and it be all oral reasoning, verbal reasoning, and you don't know how to read.
Yeah, yeah.
That is very possible. To be clear, that's what we do. We have oral reasoning, verbal reasoning first, then we figure out how to document and write down our
Yeah, I mean, we can talk a lot about what it might have meant when people interpreted or misinterpreted the idea that he was illiterate, but that's a different topic.
there's so many angles there. And when they just say the basic Muhammad didn't know, therefore Islam true. Like, there's so many nuances they're not mentioning in that. And you can tell by the way they say it, they haven't considered any of them.
And then at the end, if you end up with a good argument that shows that this or that doesn't make sense, and this is something that is not necessarily expressive of the most intelligent people, but I've seen that many times, they would just revert to, then how did you come here? Who created you?
Are
I've
you talking
heard.
about a Muslim or an ex-Muslim?
Oh, well, it's a Muslim, but the way that you're describing the the discourse that you're having with these people, it feels like you're talking about people who are Muslims with doubts, not people who have already
I
left
don't think there's
the
much
religion.
difference between the doubting Muslim and the barely new ex-Muslim.
Yeah, yeah, it's a kind of a spectrum where the line is blurred.
It's almost like
You,
only the only difference is, am I willing to label myself with the ex-Muslim label or not?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It's a
people
kind.
land there in different places.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right.
So you can have somebody with the exact, you can have two people with the exact same mental framework. You can't say exact same. You can have two people with practically the exact same mental frameworks, leading them to fear hell, but one of them labels themselves ex-Muslim, the other one later labels themselves Muslim.
Yeah,
And they're
yeah,
using different methods of how they label themselves.
Yeah.
even though it's
So
the same label. You know what I mean? Like a bunch of ex-Muslims use the word ex-Muslim label, but they have different reasoning for the label
yeah,
of how they chose.
and many people are going to be they're not going to be very happy embracing this kind of a label.
You know, I've used this on people too. I was like, have you considered? Oh, let's just say it. Songs of Deprivation says, if you get too afraid, you can be ex-Muslim. By the way, I've never heard that term. I love it. I'm going to start using it now. Ex-Muslim. You know what? I'm going to make a post in the ex-Muslim subreddit. And I'm going to say, this is because of Songs of Deprivation. So if people get mad at me, they can blame him or her. Okay.
Yeah.
I've said to people, they seem very afraid. I'm like, well, what about this? What if you just... Oh, and they were very focused on the being afraid of even labeling themselves ex-Muslim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I said, well, have you considered just label yourself Muslim, you're Muslim, and then wait a month and then check in it with yourself again and then decide if you want to change that label or not. And in this month, don't worry about it from now until then. Worry about it in a month. And I remember when I tried that, the person pushed back. He's like, "No, but I don't like Islam." Well, okay, well, I think the question and the considering it helps anyway. You know, because they could have went the other way. So, oh, you're right. That makes sense. That's like saying postpone your decision. It's no big deal. Nothing's gonna happen. It's not like they're going out and doing things as a Muslim that are bad things. You know, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think they think I'm telling them, yeah, go do whatever you want, and then go to Hajj, and then be ex-Muslim, then you're good. You know, make sure you do the Hajj part to delete everything.
Yeah. That's exactly how many Muslims actually imagine what leaving Islam is, because they think, and I've seen so many people view it that way, like they portray this idea of a sinner who has repented as representing someone who has actually left religion, someone who's actually going to come back doing the Hajj, like you said, and then cleanse everything and start with a clean slate after that. They would say, yeah, that's what you're doing. They don't have a conception that you can actually have a full and complete removal of the whole thing, and you're not connected with it anymore.
Oh, by the way, about that episode idea, about, you know, someone asked me to talk to their friend, keeping it secret that they asked me. First of all, you know, my initial reaction was, no, I don't want to do that. But then I thought, because he kept asking, and he said I asked him. He said he or she, I don't know, asked other people. They all said no. So I was like, all right, how about this? I'll at least consider it. I'll talk with my buddy Usama. Maybe even we'll do an episode just discussing the concept. Does it make sense? Is it feasible? Should we try it? If so, how? Does it make sense? Should we do an episode about it?
I don't know. I mean, like you said at the beginning, the idea of this kind of even though it might lead to something positive, does it really have to be in that particular way? Is that really the only way to communicate what that person wants to say to the other person?
Yeah. That's interesting. What you're saying is, you know, he has an idea. It's intended to solve a problem, and you're saying maybe there's another idea that's better to solve that problem. And have they considered those other ideas? Let's make that part of the point of the episode.
Yeah,
Questioning,
I mean,
you know, questioning even maybe another idea solves the problem.
it's probably going to depend on if I mean if they're close enough, they're probably going to be other ways of approaching the same kind of thing without having to go in this kind of roundabout way to do the whole thing.
Well, I mean, if their reason for keeping it secret is like they don't want to get in trouble, you know,
It's possible, yeah. But what I'm saying is, does it really have to be in that way? I'm sure there are so many different ways of laying down the facts as they are without
Oh, I want
having.
to be clear. This person's prefaced their idea with they don't know how to argue much. They want a smart person that can argue to her.
Okay, I see, I see, I see.
But then the idea there is, well, learn how to argue. But from his perspective, yeah, but couldn't you just do it? It'll work quicker and faster and blah blah blah.
But the point here would be missed, because if that person has a specific idea, they already have some kind of an idea that they want to defend. It's just that they're not seeing how they might be presenting it, or maybe they view the other person as having the ability to dominate the conversation in a specific way that might overwhelm the forcefulness of their argument or something of that sort. That's probably something that they should work on, instead of delegating that work to someone else.
How about that? Let's have the episode and we talk about these things too. We still talk about the potential effectiveness of the idea, but also talk about potentially ideas that could
Yeah,
work,
I mean,
10x
there
better
are
or
there are some interesting moral things that would be involved in this, and some ideas that can be explored.
okay, cool. All right, I think we should end the episode now. And Usama, stay on, please, for a few minutes.
Sure.
All right, bye everyone. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week.